Welcome, everybody. It's Christmas Day, and while most folks are probably out there, unwrapping presents and sipping eggnog.
Enjoying the traditional festivities.
Exactly. But here we are, about to dive headfirst into a conspiracy theory that's, well, let's just say it's spicier than that aunt's fruitcake that nobody actually eats.
Oh, that fruitcake always makes an appearance.
Always does. This time, we are checking out a really interesting blog and podcast called The W Files by WeiWat. And this is all about mysteries and the unexplained. And so are you ready to go down a rabbit hole?
Oh, yeah, always.
Yeah. Okay, so this week we are talking about a conspiracy theory.
Wait, what?
This one's been making the rounds online. And let me tell you, it's a real head-scratcher, especially for Christmas Day.
It certainly is. We're talking about the Tomb of Lucifer conspiracy theory, which alleges that Pope Francis is, well, intentionally or not, opening a portal to release Lucifer.
Okay, I gotta admit, even for someone who loves a good mystery, that sounds a little out there.
Yeah.
Especially on Christmas.
I agree. It does have a bit of a Twilight Zone feel to it.
Yeah.
But, that's what makes this deep dive so interesting. We get to explore the claims, the historical context, and even the psychology behind why these kinds of theories gain traction.
Exactly. It's like that scene in Men in Black where Agent K says, people are smart, they can handle a little weirdness. So let's embrace the weirdness and try to unpack this whole Tomb of Lucifer theory.
Sounds good to me.
So where should we start? Well, the theory seems to be centered around this Catholic Jubilee Year, which is happening right now. So maybe we should start by explaining what that is. Because I have to admit, I'm a little fuzzy on the details myself.
Excellent point. The Jubilee Year, for those who might not be familiar, is a special year in the Catholic Church. That's all about forgiveness, reconciliation, and spiritual renewal. It's kind of like a spiritual reset button, a chance to reflect on your life and seek forgiveness for past wrongs.
So it's supposed to be a positive thing, like a time for spiritual growth and reflection?
Exactly. The tradition actually dates back centuries, with roots in the Jewish year of Jubilee described in Leviticus 12:5. The core themes are all about restoration and renewal, a chance to start fresh.
Okay, so that makes sense. But how does this tie into the Tomb of Lucifer theory? Where does the whole demonic portal thing come in?
Well, it seems like the theory hinges on a few key misinterpretations and distortions of events related to the Jubilee year. One of the main points of contention seems to be the opening of holy doors during the Jubilee year. This is a tradition that's been around for centuries, symbolizing the opening of a pathway to God's mercy.
So kind of like a symbolic doorway to spiritual renewal.
Exactly. But somehow this symbolic act has been twisted into this idea of opening a literal portal to hell, with Pope Francis being the one who unlocks it.
Wow, that's quite a leap. It's like taking a beautiful metaphor about spiritual openness and turning it into a scene from Ghostbusters.
Precisely. And this is where the danger of misinformation comes in. When people take things out of context and interpret them through a lens of fear and suspicion, even the most benign acts can be made to seem sinister.
So it's a case of mistaking symbolism for reality, like thinking that the wardrobe in the Chronicles of Narnia is an actual portal to another world.
That's a great analogy, and it's not just the holy doors that have been misinterpreted. There are also claims circulating about webcams installed at St. Peter's tomb, being part of the sinister plot to unveil Lucifer's supposed tomb.
Wait, webcams?
Yes, you heard that right. But in reality, those webcams were installed to facilitate virtual pilgrimages, allowing people from all over the world to experience the site remotely. It's a way to make the Vatican more accessible, not a tool for demonic summoning.
Okay, so we've got the holy doors being misinterpreted as a portal to hell. We've got webcams being spun into surveillance tools for the underworld. What else is fueling this theory?
Well, another key element is the Vatican necropolis, an ancient burial site located beneath St. Peter's Basilica.
Ah, so this is where the Tomb of Lucifer part comes in. Are they claiming that there's an actual tomb dedicated to Lucifer down there?
That seems to be the gist of it, but of course there's no evidence to support that claim. The necropolis is a historically significant site that provides insight into the early Christian community in Rome. It's fascinating from an archaeological perspective, but it's not a demonic lair.
It sounds like someone played a little too much Diablo and let their imagination run wild.
Perhaps. But it's important to remember that for some people, these theories aren't just games. They're deeply held beliefs that shape how they see the world.
It's a good point. So we've got misinterpreted symbols, we've got webcams turned into demonic surveillance, and an ancient burial site being spun into the tomb of Lucifer. Is there anything else fueling this theory, or have we covered the main points?
Well, there's always another layer to peel back. This one also taps into some powerful symbolism and a general distrust of authority figures, especially those seen as powerful and influential.
Yes, the classic puppet master narrative. It seems like that's a recurring theme in a lot of conspiracy theories. It's like that episode of The Simpsons where Homer discovers a secret society controlling Springfield.
Exactly. The idea that someone or some group is pulling the strings from behind the scenes is a powerful one. And in this case, it seems like Pope Francis is being cast in that puppet master role.
But why the Pope specifically? I mean, there are plenty of other powerful figures out there who could be accused of orchestrating the apocalypse.
That's a good question, and I think it has a lot to do with the symbolism associated with the papacy. The Pope is seen as the head of the Catholic Church, a spiritual leader with a global following. He's a figure who commands respect, but also for some suspicion and distrust, especially those outside of the Catholic faith.
Yeah, I see. So it's like he's a perfect target for this kind of narrative because he's already seen as a figure of immense power and influence.
Exactly. And then you add in the apocalyptic themes, the idea of the end times, and it creates a perfect storm for conspiracy theorists.
It's like that scene in The Matrix where Morpheus reveals the truth about the world to Neo. Suddenly, everything you thought you knew is turned upside down.
That's a great comparison. Conspiracy theories often provide that same sense of revelation, that feeling of being in the know while the rest of the world is clueless.
Okay, so we've got the puppet master narrative, the apocalyptic themes, and the symbolic power of the papacy. What else is contributing to the appeal of this Tomb of Lucifer theory?
Well, another element is this whole idea of portals, which, as we discussed earlier, is central to this theory. Portals, whether literal or symbolic, hold a powerful place in our collective imagination.
You mean like Platform 9 3/4 in Harry Potter, or the rabbit hole in Alice in Wonderland?
Exactly. Those are perfect examples. Portals represent a passage to the unknown, a transition to another world, another reality. They tap into our sense of wonder, our curiosity, and perhaps even our primal fears of what lies beyond the veil of our everyday existence.
So are they suggesting that Pope Francis is literally opening a physical gateway to hell? Like a demonic stargate?
Well, some interpretations of the theory lean in that direction, suggesting a literal portal is being opened. Others see it more metaphorically, as a spiritual or symbolic opening that allows for negative forces to enter our world.
Okay, so it's a bit of a mix of literal and metaphorical interpretations. And of course, the more dramatic the interpretation, the more likely it is to spread online.
Exactly. Sensation sells, especially in the digital age. But beyond the sensationalism, there's something fascinating about how this theory plays on our anxieties about the unknown, about forces beyond our control.
It's like that feeling you get when you watch a horror movie. That sense of dread and anticipation, wondering what's lurking in the shadows.
Precisely. Conspiracy theories often tap into those same primal fears, offering explanations, even if they're flawed, for events that might otherwise seem random or chaotic.
So it's a way of making sense of the world, even if the explanation itself is a bit unsettling.
Exactly. And for some people, that sense of order, even if it's built on a foundation of fear and suspicion, can be more comforting than facing the uncertainty of a world that can often feel like it's spinning out of control.
I can see how that would be appealing, especially in times like these when there's so much uncertainty and change happening in the world.
Absolutely. And that's one of the reasons why conspiracy theories, particularly those with apocalyptic themes, tend to gain traction during periods of social, political, or economic upheaval. They offer a narrative, a framework for understanding why things are happening, even if that narrative is based on flawed interpretations or outright misinformation.
So it's like those dystopian novels like 1984 or Brave New World, where people cling to any sense of meaning or control, even in a world that's gone completely off the rails.
That's a great comparison. Those novels explore the human need for order, for meaning, even in the face of chaos and oppression. And in a way, conspiracy theories, even the most outlandish ones, can offer that same kind of psychological comfort, even if it comes at the cost of truth and reason.
It's a bit like choosing to believe in the Matrix, even though it means living in a world of illusion and control.
Exactly. And that choice for some people is a powerful one. It's about choosing a narrative that provides a sense of meaning and purpose, even if it's a narrative built on fear and suspicion.
Okay, so we've talked about the puppet master narrative, the appeal of portals, and the anxieties about the unknown, but I'm still curious about this whole idea of Lucifer's tomb. Is there anything in Catholic theology, or even in broader Christian tradition, that supports the idea of Lucifer having a physical tomb?
That's a great question, and one that I think gets to the heart of how this theory distorts and manipulates religious ideas. In traditional Christian theology, Lucifer, or Satan, is a fallen angel, a spiritual being, not a physical one. The idea of him having a physical tomb is quite frankly absurd from a theological perspective.
So it's like trying to find Dracula's coffin in a graveyard. It just doesn't make sense within the established lore.
Exactly. But that's where the power of selective interpretation comes in. Conspiracy theorists often take bits and pieces of religious texts or traditions, snip them of their context, and then reassemble them to fit their own narrative.
So it's a bit like a game of theological Mad Libs, filling in the blanks with whatever fits the desired outcome.
You could say that. And the danger is that these misinterpretations can spread, especially online. And they can lead people to develop beliefs that are based on fear and distortion, rather than on a genuine understanding of religious teachings.
So it's important for people to be critical consumers of information, especially when it comes to religious or spiritual ideas. Don't just take things at face value. Do your own research and consult with experts who can provide context and clarity.
Exactly. Knowledge is power, especially when it comes to combating misinformation and separating truth from fiction.
Okay, so we've explored the puppet master narrative, the symbolism of portals, and the theological misinterpretation surrounding Lucifer's supposed tomb. Is there anything else we need to unpack in relation to this theory?
Yeah, one thing that strikes me about this theory, and so many others like it, is how it just taps into this deep-seated desire for answers, for explanations, even when those explanations kind of venture into the realm of the fantastical.
Yeah, you're right. We as humans seem hardwired to seek patterns, to connect the dots even when those connections are tenuous at best. It's like that scene in A Beautiful Mind where Russell Crowe's character is, he's trying to decipher codes hidden in newspapers and magazines. Sometimes we see patterns where none exist.
Exactly. Our brains are wired to find meaning even in chaos. And sometimes that leads us down some very interesting rabbit holes. In the case of the Tomb of Lucifer theory, it's like people are trying to fit together pieces of a puzzle that don't actually belong together. They're taking bits of religious symbolism, historical events, and current anxieties, and weaving them into a narrative that feels compelling, even if it's ultimately based on faulty logic and misinterpretations.
It's like they're playing a game of connect the dots, but they're drawing lines between points that are miles apart, and the picture they create, while maybe intriguing, doesn't actually reflect reality.
That's a great way to put it. And this tendency to find patterns even where they don't exist is something that psychologists have been studying for years. It's called apophenia. And it's basically the tendency to perceive meaningful connections between unrelated things.
Apophenia. I like that word. It sounds like the name of a villain in a superhero movie. But seriously, this idea that our brains are wired to find patterns even when they're not there, that explains a lot about why conspiracy theories are so appealing.
It does. Conspiracy theories often provide a sense of order and control. In a world that can feel chaotic and unpredictable, they offer explanations, even if they're flawed, for events that might otherwise seem random or meaningless, and for some people that can be very comforting.
It's like that feeling you get when you finally solve a difficult puzzle. There's a sense of satisfaction, of closure, even if the solution itself is a bit convoluted.
Precisely. And this desire for closure, for answers, is something that's deeply ingrained in us. We want to understand the world around us, to make sense of it. And sometimes we're willing to accept even the most outlandish explanations if they provide that sense of understanding.
Yeah, it's like in those mystery novels, where the detective finally reveals the culprit, and all the pieces fall into place. We might not have seen it coming, but the solution, even if it's a bit far-fetched, provides a sense of satisfaction, a feeling that the mystery has been solved.
Exactly. And that's the allure of conspiracy theories. They offer that same sense of resolution, that feeling that the mystery of the universe has been unlocked.
But as we've been discussing, the problems that those solutions are often based on faulty logic, misinterpretations, and a selective reading of the evidence.
You're absolutely right. And that's why it's so important to be critical thinkers, to question the narratives we encounter, and to be willing to challenge our own assumptions.
It's like that scene in The Usual Suspects, where Kevin Spacey's character, Verbal Kint, spins a tale so elaborate and convincing that everyone believes him, even though it's all a fabrication.
That's a perfect example. We need to be careful not to let ourselves be seduced by narratives that sound good, but that don't hold up to scrutiny.
So it's about being discerning consumers of information, especially in the digital age where misinformation can spread so easily.
Exactly. We need to be critical, but also curious. We need to ask questions, seek out evidence, and be willing to change our minds when presented with new information.
Like that famous quote from Carl Sagan, Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence.
Absolutely. In the case of the Tomb of Lucifer theory, the evidence just doesn't support the claims. It's a narrative built on misinterpretations, symbolism taken out of context, and a general distrust of authority.
If you're interested in more explorations into these mysteries and conspiracy theories, definitely check out WeiWat's The W Files.
That's a good one.
He's kind of like the Sherlock Holmes of the internet.
Yeah.
Unraveling these bizarre claims with logic research and a really great sense of humor.
I think the most important thing is to remember that critical thinking is our best defense against falling prey to these kinds of theories. Question your sources, examine the evidence, and be willing to challenge your own assumptions. And remember, just because a narrative is compelling or emotionally resonant doesn't mean it's true.
That's such a crucial point. We need to be careful not to let our emotions cloud our judgment. Sometimes the most satisfying explanations are the ones that confirm our existing biases. But that doesn't mean they're accurate.
Exactly. And, it's okay to be curious about these theories, to explore them, to try to understand why they appeal to people. But that exploration needs to be done with a critical eye, a discerning mind, and a willingness to seek out the truth, even if it's not as exciting as the fiction.
I love that curiosity and critical thinking, two sides of the same coin. And I think that's a perfect note to end on. Thank you for joining us on this Christmas Day deep dive into the Tomb of Lucifer conspiracy theory.
It's been a pleasure.
And to our listeners, remember, stay curious, stay skeptical, and keep exploring the world with a discerning mind.
Wait, what?